Hey, my friends, DM Scotty here. Great to have you with me. Today I want to talk about something that I think can happen to terrain makers, and it's kind of terrain burnout, right? How do you avoid that? That can be an issue. It can especially be an issue if you run a lot of games. I'm kind of lucky in the fact that my groups generally can't meet for a month. We meet like once a month. And we play long session. We play like a long session. That helps give me time to do the stuff I need to do. But if you're playing week to week, it can really be a chore. So don't let it become a chore. And here's a few things you can do to help the terrain not become a chore and just decide, you just quit it because it's just like too much work. Here's one thing I see, and it's fine, but you could get the burnouts, right? I see a lot of people build very specific terrain, not objects that go in the space, but like a whole set that's one specific thing, that they can only be used for that one thing. That you can get really cool details, it can really be cool, but be careful, because if you try to do that for every game, you're gonna burn yourself out, right? Unless you just don't have a job and don't do anything else but DM and game, you're gonna burn yourself out on that kind of terrain building. So if you make it as modular as possible, which I try to do with my tilescapes and my dungeon blocks, you can just build whatever you need quickly from the pieces you have, and you don't have to worry about just one set piece that you're going to use once and it's going to be some big piece you store or have to give to the game store or whatever. And you've spent all this time doing it when you could have spent all this time doing this modular stuff, which it may not look as spectacular, because if you do make a homogeneous piece, it is going to look really, really good. But on the other hand, you may not be able to use it again, ever, and you spent all this time building it. So that can be a burnout effect too. Another thing that you can do is you don't have to build every single hallway, every single cavern, every single hall. You might just have a few set piece encounters in that. If it's like a thing where you explore, you can theater the mind a lot of that stuff, right? You don't have to build everything. And so that helps to keep the burnout and just your mind from getting overwhelmed with having every little thing set out. You don't have to do that. For example, I had a thing where my players went into some ice caverns and they were all kind of crazy, like up and down and slides and all this kind of stuff. And instead of worrying about building that, I just had them make checks, to get through that stuff, to get to the place they needed to go to find their friends that were captured by these ice trolls, right? And, I didn't build every hallway, I didn't build every room, I built the final encounter room. So I built one room, right? And then I had them do checks to get in and out. That's it. You can describe all the stuff that happens in the meantime, but, if you just do that kind of thing, then you don't have to worry about building so much, right? And if I built a whole ice cavern, it would have been a lot of work instead of building a few rooms as the ice cavern, right? So it saves your sanity, it saves your time, and you got the energy to actually game, and not you're just like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted from building terrain. You don't want to get that way. Those are a couple great ways to relieve yourself. And another third thing is, don't worry about building every single thing. You don't have to worry about having every little bookcase, every little treasure chest, every little thing. If you have a few little things you can throw in there, that's fine. If you don't have everything, don't sweat it. Get the major stuff built first, then worry about those little teeny details. Because you can always describe or explain or even substitute things for the things that are going to be in there. You don't necessarily have to have every single thing physically represented, right? And I think people can get obsessed with that. It's a wizard room. I got to have 16 bookshelves in here, and I have one day to do it. It's like, don't stress yourself out about that. Maybe if you get a couple bookshelves built, you're good. And just say, oh, there's this whole wall is lined with these bookshelves. You know, you don't have to build every single thing. And you know, that's one thing I don't obsess about. I try to get the main details first, and then that little stuff, if I have it, good. If I don't, just you know, theater of the mind, explain that it's in there if you have to, if you got to, or make it quick and cheap. You know, instead of maybe making shelves, make a cardboard. You know, get a couple pieces of cardboard and slap a picture of a bookshelf on the cardboard, right, and set it up. You don't need to have every little scroll and book and everything in there. That's fun to do. It is. And you can build your collection over time is what I've done. Over these 5 years I've been doing this channel, I've been building up my collection of stuff, so I do have that stuff that I can throw in there. But when you start out, you're not going to have all that stuff, so don't stress about it. Don't stress about worrying about having every single little thing represented, because you're just going to burn yourself out. So don't burn yourself out on this. This is all about having fun and increasing the enjoyment of the game. And if you're stressing out and having to worry about building everything, you're not gonna have energy to run the game. Actually, you're just gonna be like, oh God, I had this chore, I got it done, and all this stuff. So yeah, so just calm down, and you know, and build what you need. You know, that's another good point too. You know, if you're building caverns or something and you need some rooms, don't build like 50 tiles at once, right? Unless you have the time. Build the ones you need first, and then move on to something else. You can always come back and make more, okay? So keep it real, keep it, you know, keep it within reason that you don't burn yourself out. So I hope this helps. This is how I run my games and how I approach my crafting. I don't know if I've ever really said how I do that, and I thought it might be interesting to do this and to kind of take a little bit of pressure off your shoulders as a DM, because some people can be so intimidated by, oh my God, they got all this cool stuff and I can't build all that before the game. Well, don't worry about it. If you got to use you know, a dry erase mat and have some terrain, you know, go with that. Start with that. Don't worry, oh, I don't have the tiles. Don't worry about that. Draw on the dry erase, put a few things down that you do have, and start building up your collection so you're not stressing out that, oh my God, I don't have the whole castle layout. You know, another thing I did, here's another example of kind of piecemeal terrain, right? I was running a castle encounter, and it was a huge castle, okay? And so what I did is I just printed a map. It didn't really have details of the room, but it gave the layout of the castle, which the players could see by just being in or around the castle. And they could tell me where they want to go within the castle, and we could track that on the map. And then if I wanted to have some kind of encounter, I could make those few rooms or the courtyard or whatever where an encounter actually happened, and not worry about building. I would have never had the castle. I mean, this thing was huge. I would have never had it ready for the game. So, you know, use your time wisely and think about these shortcuts that you can use that you don't get overwhelmed with the crafting. All right, I hope this helped you guys. Some ways that you can alleviate that stress of crafting, because you don't want it to be stress. We want it to be fun, and we want to enhance our game and not stress us out and make us burned out for the game, and we're like, can't DM because we're so burned out. So, or quit crafting altogether, which is even worse, you know, which I think some people do. So there's some tips. I hope they're helpful, and I'll see you next time. You guys go forth and craft, go forth and game, have fun, keep crafting, and more vids coming at you all the time. And I'll see you next time on the DM's Craft.